Hi, I'm Margaret Jones of the Gatton Academy, and I conduct research with Dr. Martin Stone of the WKU Department of Agriculture and Food Sciences. Our research studies how high gravity environments affect the growth of crops. So I want to start us off by talking a little bit about space agriculture. So if humans want to be able to journey into space, we need to be able to grow our own food sources throughout the journey. So scientists now are studying how best to grow plants in space. The International Space Station created the Advanced Plant Habitat, which is shown here. This is actually the first radish crop ever grown in space. And also they have the Plant Gravity Perception Mission, which is showing how gravity itself affects the plants. Also, scientists are researching which plants would be best for space agriculture. So they found that leafy greens are ideal because they need less light, less water, and they produce food faster. So this includes lettuce and radishes. All of this research into space agriculture has to do with microgravity, or gravity that's less than Earth's gravity. But there's also being research done into macrogravity or hypergravity, which is gravity levels more than 1G and more than Earth's gravity. So these gravity conditions are simulated using a centrifugal device. So there's been some hypergravity experiments researching how high gravity affects plant growth itself. And they found that it reduced the height of young radish, cress, and pea plants. The goal of my experiment is to quantify the effects of hypergravity on crop growth in terms of plant height, leaf number, and biomass. These high gravity environments were simulated using this centrifuge here, surrounded by this fence for safety. The left arm here shows 2G, the right arm is simulating 4G. And as you can see, the 2G arm spins slower than the 4G, and so that's putting less force on the plants that are inside. And this is the left arm here, the 2G arm. 15 plants under each condition were kept in this condition for 24/7 during the experimental period. So our experiment had 3 conditions. 1G, which is the control, that's shown here in this bin. It was kept at Earth's gravity. And then 2G and 4G were kept on the centrifuge. During the spring and fall of 2020, I did 2 separate runs of the experiment with sodbuster radishes. This most recent semester, I conducted the experiment with lettuce. So each run of the experiment was conducted during a 26 to 28 day growing period, and during this period, it was watered every day with 150 parts per million fertilizer solution. And each week during this period, I took non-destructive measurements. So height in centimeters and leaf number, I measured this for each plant sample. At the end of the 28-day period, I took destructive measurements. So I extracted the roots and the shoots, which is the top part of the plant. I extracted those from the samples and put them into this industrial drying oven here for multiple days until there was no water weight left. So just the dry mass itself, and put it into this analytical scale here to measure how much carbon was fixed in the plants. So how much actual growth did they do? So with all of this data, we conducted an analysis of variance at the 0.05 level. So getting into the data, we have here how radish height is affected over time. So on the x-axis here, we have time in days, and from low to high, and on the y-axis, we have radish height in centimeters from low to high. So here we have the means conducted of each condition from each day, and along with the standard error bars. And the gray here is 1G, the orange is 2G, and the blue is 4G. And as you can see, the 1G is higher than the 2G, which is higher than the 4G throughout the time. We found that each condition was significantly different from the others. So 2G was significantly reduced from 1G, 4G was significantly reduced from 2G. So this shows that over increased gravity, the radish height decreases, so that they're inversely proportional. We've had similar data for the radish leaf number. So again, we have time on the x-axis and radish leaf number on the y-axis, and then 1G, 2G, and 4G shown on the graph. And again, all comparisons were significantly different from each other. So 1G was significantly higher than 2G, which was significantly higher than 4G. So the leaf number decreased as gravity increased, so they're inversely proportional. Moving on to the destructive data, we have radish dry shoot biomass on the y-axis and the gravity on the x-axis, so 1, 2, and 4G. And we found that 2G was significantly reduced from 1G, and 4G was significantly reduced from 1G, but we couldn't say that 2G and 4G were different. But this still shows a reduction as gravity increased, so they're still inversely proportional. Now we have radish dry root biomass in grams from low to high, and then gravity again on the x-axis. This graph also shows the inverse proportionality between these two. We found that 1G and 4G were significantly different. So 4G was significantly reduced from 1G, and it was also significantly reduced from 2G, but you couldn't say that 1 and 2G were different, but it still shows a reduction. Moving on to the lettuce, we have lettuce height shown here on the y-axis and gravity on the x from low to high. And we saw that all comparisons were significantly different from each other. So under each condition, it decreased as with higher gravity. The height was less. So there's an inverse proportionality between the two. Moving on to lettuce leaf number, we found that 1G was significantly different from 4G, but 1G and 2G were not, and 2G and 4G were not. But this still shows that 4G was significantly less than 1G at the 0.05 level. So the leaf number decreased over an increase from 1 to 4Gs. Moving on to lettuce dry shoot biomass, we found that 1G was significantly different from 4G, again, like the last graph, which shows the decrease as gravity increases. On the lettuce dry root biomass in grams, we found that it was not significantly affected by gravity on the 0.05 level, so no post hoc means analysis was conducted. Overall, we found that both the height for both radish and lettuce is inversely proportional to gravity. So as gravity increases, the height decreases. We also found that leaf number for both species is inversely proportional to gravity. For the radish, oven-dried biomass of both roots and shoots was inversely proportional to gravity. For lettuce, oven-dried biomass of shoots was inversely proportional to gravity, but the roots showed no effect. So overall, these results showed that higher gravity environments produce plants that were shorter, fewer leaves, and less biomass than normal gravity. So the main takeaway from this is that plant growth is inversely related to gravity. As gravity increased, the growth was suppressed. So our data is interesting because the lettuce showed less of an effect than the radishes. So the lettuce grew closer to normal conditions than the radishes did. This maybe makes them a better crop for space agriculture because they will act more similar to normal. Our results were also consistent with the literature that showed that the height of young plants was reduced under high gravity conditions. Ours also showed reduced height. So we're wondering, why did this happen? What caused the suppression in growth at the higher gravity conditions? And Ritz found reduced photosynthetic activity at higher gravity due to a reduced chlorophyll A levels. So this causes the plant to fix less carbon and be able to grow less. In the future, we want to repeat the lettuce experiment to get a second set of data. And also we want to test the soil hydration under different gravity conditions to see if that could have an effect on the data, because the higher gravity conditions, the centrifugal force could pull water out at a higher rate and cause some stress on the plants. So we want to conduct this study to be able to see if that's a factor in our results. All of these results have implications for space agriculture. Agriculturists want to be able to predict how their plants will behave under different conditions, especially in space. So they want to be able to know if their plants will have less yield due to the high gravity conditions. And also, this centrifugal device could be a means to screen for potential space crops. So see if they are affected a lot or not a lot by the high gravity conditions. And I'll leave you on this nice photo of a potential future space agriculture facility. And I would just like to thank the Baker Arboretum and the Baker Foundation for their help with this experiment, and also the Gatton Academy and the WKU Agriculture Department for helping me in my academic endeavors. And finally, I would like to thank the judges and the audience for your time. Thank you.